In a previous video, we discussed the evidence pointing towards climate change, and now we're going to discuss the effects of climate change. So why do we care and what's actually happening because of this? So we had originally kind of mentioned extreme weather events. So we're seeing a lot of things like forest fires, droughts, floods, and storm increases. These are obviously natural or kind of environmental issues, but these can lead to things down the road. So, of course, the increase of floods or forest fires, we have these economic issues. There might be property damage. And in the case of stuff like droughts, we have crops that can't grow. And so this affects the economy of a region or a country, particularly countries that are very agricultural and rely on those exports to kind of grow their country and get some money. This damage of crops has a very profound effect on the economies of those countries. We've also seen increased deaths from natural disasters, particularly in developing countries where they may not have the infrastructure required to withstand some of these climate events. We can look at the impact on fresh water. We're seeing that fresh water quantity and quality, so the amount and how good it is, are being threatened. As previously mentioned, we've seen an increase in droughts and floods and changes in precipitation patterns. Glaciers melting, lakes and rivers drying up, and then that's obviously going to have an effect on the wildlife that lives in and around those bodies of water. We've talked about forest fires. This has a effect on the forest health, right? Forest fires will kind of pose challenges for wildlife. And we talked about how the feedback loops between kind of forests dying, releasing carbon, that causing the temperature to increase, that causing more forest fires, is also negatively impacting ecosystems. Insects that may live in those forests then have to find a new place to live. And as they move to adjacent kind of ecosystems, well, they're going to cause problems in those ecosystems if they're invasive species. We've seen a pretty significant change in migration patterns. And so we can see how species have decided to kind of move or face extinction. And so we've seen the tundra and boreal forests and the temperate zones in Canada kind of shift and change over the last few years, and even predicting out to the year 2060 what will happen when we double the carbon dioxide, if we double the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And so these changes in ecosystems is obviously a big problem because it's going to force wildlife to move, and that's going to displace other wildlife or cause conflict between them. Up in the Arctic, we're seeing the permafrost melt. This is causing, ice to melt and the water to flow into, the surrounding areas. We've seen ground shifts, damage to buildings and pipelines. This is causing more greenhouse gases to be released in the atmosphere. And then the melting of sea ice and ice sheets is causing habitat changes, right? Polar bears kind of rely on that, the sea ice and the glaciers, and different animals may as well. And some of them use them to live, some of them use them to hunt, and that's causing significant ecosystem changes as well. From a human point of view, we're seeing health problems, more tropical diseases, pests, mosquitoes, and rodents are starting to kind of appear. Air pollution is getting worse, particularly in countries that are over-industrialized. People are getting respiratory diseases and things down the line that we don't even know about yet, and developing asthma and allergies that maybe haven't been seen before. And finally, we talk about the economic risks. Countries that rely on wood as an export might have issues in their forestry industry. We might see an increase of pests or diseases. Damage to agriculture, whether it be farming or whatever type of farming it may be, are also being kind of threatened. All of these together should give us an idea that climate change is something we need to deal with. The evidence is pretty clear, and the effects are ongoing and very clear. And so, kind of putting it all together leaves us with a choice to do something about it, and then hopefully it's not too late in the process that we can reverse some of the changes that we've seen, that we've caused, and then kind of fix these economic or health or habitat problems that have arisen due to climate change.